Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our first online talk of the school year. We are so excited to be back. We are so excited to be back in your schools, chatting with you, meeting with you. Just so grateful that the school year has launched. We have been extremely busy, as you can well imagine, as everybody has been at the beginning of a school year. For those of you who have not met me yet, my name is Sally. I'm the program director here at Smart Families, and I get the incredible job of hosting a lot of our online talks, and I get to meet some incredible people as I travel across the US and then invite them to come and share their knowledge and expertise with the rest of our families. Before I go ahead and kind of frame this online talk, I would love just to introduce a couple of people who are on the call with me. I have a couple of colleagues, so I'd love to, these are people and names that you'll kind of come across as our content starts to be distributed. So the first one I'd love you to be introduced to is Dean. Dean is here based in Houston with us. So Dean, if you want to just share who you are and your role at Smart Families.
Love to. Thank you, Sally. So my name is Dean Kovacs. I'm the Director of School Engagement here at Smart Families. So pretty much seeing how this program rolls out at your school and working with all your wonderful implementation coordinators to make sure that we really just help shape and form your school culture. So looking forward to the talk, and I work with a lot of schools directly, but it's very exciting to be here too. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. And I can see another colleague, Ashley, if you would like to say a quick hello.
Yes, sure, Sally. I'm Ashley Hartman, and just like Dean, I work with schools to shape and form the community. We want to saturate your community with all the knowledge and create communities that can band together and navigate this technology world for our kids in the most positive and healthy and intentional way. I'm an implementation coordinator for Smart Families, and I was a middle school teacher before my role here, so I saw directly the effects that the smart devices were having on my students. And when I saw Smart Families come to my little girls' school, they brought Dr. Collier to present, and I learned the neuroscience and all the reasoning behind these effects that the devices were having on these kids. And I became very passionate and empowered to letting kids know what's going on with their brain and what these devices are doing, as well as the parents and families. So I'm glad you guys are all here, and I can't wait to hear this talk today.
And thanks, Ashley. And we also have Patrice. Patrice is based. Let's just say hello and introduce yourself.
Sure. Good afternoon. I'm Patrice Hall. I'm the Regional Director of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I have the joy of walking alongside all the principals and teachers and families across the Dallas-Fort Worth area to encourage strong community and intentional technology use. I'd like to give a little shout out, if you look through the videos, to St. Andrews. That is one of the Dallas-Fort Worth schools. My husband graduated from there. My 4 children graduated from there. And so as a mom myself, I know I really believe in this mission, and I'm thrilled to see St. Andrews not only allowing us to partner with Sophie Kriss, their very own, but also the community that they're showing gathering together to watch this webinar over lunch. Thank you so much.
Thank you, team. So these are the people, these are some of our people who you will be either speaking directly to or receiving information from. So we're a very relational organization. We're all about humans. And so I just want you to see some of the faces behind the names. Okay, so like I said, I'm the program director, but like many of our team, I was also a teacher in the classroom. And so I feel so incredibly blessed to have been given a very privileged view of family life for many, many years. And I also have 3 of my own children. I have a 15-year-old son, a 13-year-old son, and a 10-year-old daughter. So I am very open at telling everybody that I not only walk this professionally, but this is my personal life too. Because I work for Smart Families, it does not in any way mean that I am immune to my children asking me the same questions as everybody else's children. I get asked frequently, why can't I have this app? Or everybody else has this. I'm the only one that doesn't have this. So I hear all of these questions. And so I really do my role with a lot of compassion and a lot of empathy for you all, because it can feel just monumental and often never ending, because before you finally figured out about one app or one certain type of thing, and then before you know it, there's another thing that's popped up. So the nice thing about my role is that I spend a lot of my time doing the research. I spend a lot of time reading research papers, scientific studies, and I condense all of this information into a really nice, digestible amount of information that is suitable for families, because we are busy. Families have multiple things that we're always trying to do and get the kids to places. So my role is really just to help educate and support you as much as possible. With that, for those of you who are new to Smart Families this year, I just want to give you a very quick reminder of our 4 norms. These are norms that we help support schools to really kind of guide parents. So we look at having prioritizing family and knowing what our family values are. For me personally, that's my main umbrella one. I want my children to know that I am their priority, so that if anything were to happen, they would come to me as their priority. We also want parents to delay smartphones until after high school, delay social media until at least 16, and this phone-free school day. So that said, I want to just provide you a bit of a frame about why I chose this topic to be our first talk for the school year, because many people may have looked and read kind of the notes and thought, vestibular system, like, what is she talking about? What is this thing? And I want to just give you a little bit of an insight into what my life was like towards the end of my teaching career, because I was in my classroom and often and frequently my children would fall off their chairs for no apparent reason. I would be teaching, I would hear a crash on the floor, I'd look over and I'd say, "Are you good?" And they'd be like, "Yes." And they would sit back on their chairs. And then moments later, I'd hear it again and again. And I had a child that would hold the table or lean all over the table when they were talking to me. And in the beginning, it was somewhat of a novel observation. And I would be like joking around with colleagues and say, "Oh my gosh, my children keep falling off the chairs." But then something happened. Some teaching colleagues said, "My children are falling off their chairs." And then I started asking more people and saying, "Is anybody else?" And turns out other people's students are falling off the chairs. Now, my research brain, I said, there has to be a reason behind this, that there must be a reason. There can't be something that we're all seeing, and there has to be an answer. And so during some of my research, I discovered something called the vestibular sense, which was new information for me, despite having been in the classroom for many, many years, having direct access to teaching children. I had never learned about something called a vestibular system. And a few weeks ago, I was in Fort Worth doing a teacher presentation for all of the Fort Worth-based staff. And afterwards, the most wonderful face came running up to me, and that person is Sophie Kriss, and she said, "I am so happy that you're talking about this." And she introduced herself and said that she was a pediatric occupational therapist, and that she had really seen throughout her career lots of the same things that I was seeing in my classroom. And what started was just this great conversation. So I asked Sophie, would she come and be on our webinar today, just really as somebody who can take all of her expertise and all of her knowledge and just share it with you all, because we hear a lot in the news and in media about children with anxiety and depression. And I really view this as more like an onion. I think we can peel back. These are the symptoms. What is at the core? What is the biology or the neurology? What is going on that so many children are being impacted this way? And the more I started to research it, the more I kept coming back to the vestibular system, that there is an impact in the way our bodies and our brains are designed to grow and develop, and the way that screens, whether that's early screen use, iPads, laptops, this screen use is changing the way that our brains are developing. So with all that to say, even right now, and you think I still have no idea what this vestibular system is, I promise you that in an hour's time, you will just feel so compelled to implement some of the things that you're going to hear from Sophie. So Sophie, I would love to now hand it over to you. If you would just please start by introducing yourself, just sharing kind of the work that you do, where you are based, and really what led you to be in this place of a career.
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Sophie Kriss. I am the occupational therapist here at St. Andrews Catholic School, and I am starting my second year as the occupational therapist here. I graduated from UTMB with my master's in occupational therapy in 2008. So I've been practicing in strictly pediatrics for 17 years. I've been in clinic, home health. I've taught CEU courses. I've been in private Catholic schools, and now I feel God kind of led me to St. Andrews for a reason. My youngest daughter goes here at St. Andrews, so it's kind of perfect for me. But what I love most is working with kids. I do want to do a disclaimer. They are playing, they have recess going on right now. So if you're hearing giggling, if you're hearing laughing, it makes my heart happy, but I will try my best to focus in because I love hearing them play outside. And I feel that our kids are so, what I've been seeing in my career and seeing across the board, whether it's home health, clinic, or school, is kind of the same thing about the senses. And so that's what we're going to talk about really today is your vestibular system. You're going to hear us talk about a couple other systems as we go through it, but you will be amazed at how much it relates to your child, your students, whether you're a teacher or parent. I'm going to give you examples and you're going to go, oh, okay, I can see that now. And then what we're doing right now at St. Andrews, which I love, they gave me this great opportunity to kind of start this new program with my team. And we're all just working together to go, okay, how can we serve our students best? And I believe 0 to 5 is such a crucial age where we can integrate our sensory systems, and we can teach our kids how to use their body in space. And I'm going to get in more detail as we go on, but some of the stuff that we're doing here at St. Andrews is I'm doing sensory motor obstacle courses. I'm watching our kids motor plan and organize their movements and how their body is in space. So we'll do like 5 or 6 things where it's organizing their brain. But I can tell when I watch kids that if they're having difficulty or not. And most of the time when I talk to the teachers, those kids are having difficulty in the classroom. So it is very much, it's like a holistic approach. We also are doing handwriting small groups. We're doing classroom observations and strategies for our teachers and our kids in the classroom. Everybody learns differently. Every one of us, if I did a sensory profile, everyone on right now listening, every one of us would have a deficit area, and that's okay. We just have learned to adapt and maneuver through our life so we can be the best version of ourselves. And I think that's what our goal is in Catholic schools and any schools, is to give our kids the tools that are just right for their brain to be as successful as possible. And so we're going to talk more about the sensory system. And I think you'll be amazed at, like, when you start thinking about these examples, you're like, oh my goodness, I can see this in this student, or I can see this in my child. You'll start realizing how much it does affect us.
And that was definitely something that happened to me in the classroom. I was seeing things repeatedly, and then finally for those of you that spend any time with me, I'm the why person. I want to know why. Like, tell me why. I mean, I kind of mimic a lot of the teenagers, like, tell me why. But it just made so much sense to me. So when Sophie and I first started having these conversations about being involved in an online talk, and I said vestibular system, and Sophie said, well, we can start there, but everything is so integrated. So we're going to kind of use the vestibular system as a springboard. But I would love if you would just kind of lay the foundation. Would you just explain what is the vestibular system? Where is the vestibular system? And really what that is like for parents to understand.
Absolutely. Well, and so first, what I'm going to tell you is sensory processing. So a lot of times you hear that word, but we don't really understand what that means. And so it means that we're all sensory beings, and this is how we process our daily environment. So it refers to how our brain registers, interprets, and also how we use this information to maneuver through our everyday life. So one thing I want you to think about is that these senses are food for our brain. And some people don't know this, but we actually have 7 senses. And so we're going to talk about our vestibular system today, but we have our auditory, visual, tactile, olfactory, which is smell, your taste, vestibular, and proprioception. All these senses work together to help your child be as successful as they can in the school setting. And just one thing to remember, our kids, their job is school and their job is play. And those are two such crucial things for them to be, I guess, to fly the nest one day, right? That's what we want as parents. And so as we move forward, we're going to really think about these 7 senses and how they integrate. But I want you to really think about the vestibular system and how it helps us through life and how we maneuver through life using that system. But it's so crazy how much it affects how our kids pay attention in school, how alert they are, where their body is in space. So I just want you to visualize, because I'm a visual learner, that I want you to think about like a rainbow. And I want you to think about, if you watch Winnie the Pooh growing up, you know Winnie the Pooh is going to be right here. So he's your more balanced kiddo, right? You have your Eeyores that are just, just a little bit slower, but they love life. And you have your Tiggers that are over here. Some of you know me very well, and I am a Tigger with the capital H. I am constantly moving and going, and that's okay, right? I've learned to adapt. But I want you to really visualize as we start talking about vestibular and some of these examples I'm going to give you, you can kind of start thinking like, oh, yeah, I can see this student here, or this student there, or this student here. And I can give you tips on what you can do in the classroom to help that student. So just kind of keep that in your head. So with vestibular, I'm going to tell you the definition. So vestibular is like when you're swinging on a swing, when you're upside down, when you're spinning. This is how our bodies handle movement throughout space. So what I'm going to have you do, again, y'all can have your cameras off. You'll see me, but I want everybody to stand up. And once you stand up, I want you to close your eyes. I want you to take your right hand and I want you to touch your nose and keep that on your nose. I want you to take your left hand, touch your head, and keep it on your head. And now I want you to balance on your left leg. And down. Okay, open your eyes. So that right there shows us how we move through space. We had our eyes closed, so we had no visual, but we knew where our right arm was, where our left arm was, where our left leg was, where our right leg was. We were able to touch it without hurting ourselves or without hitting hard. That's how we move through life. So many of the children that I've been working with over the years have a very hard time knowing left and right, like age appropriate, but that they'll miss their nose or they'll slap their head real hard or they can't balance. And that's how we use our bodies in space. So think about crawling, walking. Think about just how a child walks through the classroom around desk. I have kids that will run into every single desk before they actually get to their desk. And then, as Sally was saying, I have kids that sit in the desk and they're falling off. They don't know where their body is in space and how to use that. And one thing to remember is your vestibular system works 24 hours. So when you're sleeping, it's still working because that's why you're not rolling off the bed. So it's kind of crazy to think about those kind of things because it's always activated all the time. And one thing to remember is your vestibular system is in your inner ear, but it's connected so much to auditory. So I want you to visualize a kid. I'm going to stand up. You don't have to stand up, but a kid that's on the basketball court or playing at recess, and you go, "Hey, Johnny, your shoe's untied. Can you bend down and tie it?" And they bend down, they start tying, and they're balanced, they're tying, and then somebody calls their name and they look up and they're looking at their teacher, but they're also still balanced, still tying their shoe, and they're able to visually scan to that person. That is, again, your vestibular, your body in space, and your auditory so connected. So think about how much this is used in a classroom. Is that making sense?
No,
I guess.
I think that's a great description. And what I think is so incredible is just how the system never switches off. And from everything I've read, it's so foundational for the development of all the other senses. Like, you have to have a strong vestibular system. So now that you've given us this brilliant understanding of just how important and vital this system is, can you share with me a little bit about how do screens impact the vestibular system? So whether we hear all kinds of screens here at Smart Families, we're all about delay smartphones, but we are very realistic. We know that younger children may have iPads or other devices. So what do we know is the interaction between screens and the vestibular system, and what could that look like either at home or in the classroom if a child is not developing the vestibular system as we would expect?
So what I'm seeing with my kids that I've been working with over the years, and I think what some of my other OT friends are seeing, is that this is what we're starting to see, is that they're having difficulty with reading. So they're having a difficult time maintaining that gaze and to focus across text. So that left to right reading. They're also having a difficult time looking up at the board and coming back down copying. So think of spelling words, think of math equations, think of something that your teacher has written on the chalkboard or the whiteboard, and you have to go up and down and up and down, and you're constantly that you're writing. Another thing is that visual tracking, the spatial awareness, writing skills. You're seeing that are totally affecting it. And then the screens, I have kids that think this is how they write at school. And it's because they've used this motion to play iPads or iPhones and scrolling. And so we're seeing like a decreased hand strength and endurance. We're seeing handwriting skills, very pre-writing skills that we have to have these blocks so we can build our blocks up. We're also seeing kids with a little more lack of attention, alertness, that want to be constantly engaged all the time. And then we're seeing behavior, whether it's constant moving, constant fidgeting, or they're just kind of like, okay, I'm not interactive, I'm not alert, I'm not attentive. We're also seeing, because kids are having devices earlier on, we're seeing delayed motor skills. We're seeing more poor coordination, motor planning. And then so one thing to remember is when your body is coordinated and you have better motor movements, it coordinates your whole body, but it coordinates your brain. When your body movements are organized and you know how to use your space and your body in space, then your brain is more organized. And so you're alert, attentive, and ready to listen in the classroom. What we're seeing is, because we're doing more things, not like having manipulative play or play activities, we're seeing this kind of these milestones not being met. And so age appropriately, they're not meeting those milestones.
And I can totally relate to this, because one of the things that I had seen, as well as the chair, which was more an obvious manifestation of something going on with my students, was the children who weren't able to copy off the board to the table on their paper. And these kiddos were so low confidence. They were like my kiddos who were trying so hard, but they just weren't able to do this. And so it would break my heart. And other people may relate. I know these can be the kiddos that can go to the pediatrician's office, pass the eye test, but cannot master reading in the classroom. And I can love that you just mentioned about tracking across this midline. I'd love to go, we talked kind of with this development of the vestibular system, but for those of us here that maybe have maybe middle schoolers or high schoolers, what kind of impacts do we see with this age group? Is there a time that the vestibular system has finished developing, or can we still see impacts at that age as well?
So we can, yes, you will see impacts throughout school age. So our teens and our high schoolers, what we're seeing now is honestly, it goes more into the social emotional component. We are seeing an increase in anxiety and depression, an overstimulated brain. We're seeing even sleep. They are on their phone for so long, and that blue light in phones actually decrease your melatonin, and melatonin is used to help us sleep. So you're overstimulating your brain. You're on this screen, and then you're trying to get as many likes from your 1,000 friends. And when you don't get the likes, think about how that makes some of our kids feel. And then now they've played on their phone for 3 hours before bedtime, and they can't go to sleep. So when you've overstimulated your brain's overactive, then you're questioning your self-worth because you didn't get all these likes, or somebody didn't invite you to some kind of party or event. And then you're trying to go to bed. So you've already decreased your melatonin. You're already questioning your self-worth. And then your brain's overactive. If we do not get adequate sleep, that next day you cannot emotionally regulate. You cannot problem solve like you're supposed to. Attention, alertness, all these things are affected. And a student that cannot attend or be alert at school, how do you learn? And then on top of that, that is our biggest thing with our junior hires. Social emotional is so important, and especially now because we are seeing such a rise in anxiety, depression, also to just students questioning their self-worth. And that breaks my heart when they think the 1,000 friends on social media are really, they're all their friends. They're going to be there. And what we have to realize is every person deserves a friend, but they deserve a true friend. And we really need to help our kids really realize where is the real? Our God's real, our family's real, our, like your close friends. What is true and real, and what makes you feel loved? And it really, you are seeing so much of this, and it breaks your heart. And I mean, think about one thing. I was reading some studies, and this will kind of blow your mind when you think about it like this. So one study found that children 8 to 18 are spending an average of well, I guess this is my question for you. Let's see who gets it right. One study found that children from 8 to 18 are spending an average of how many hours a day on screen? A, 4.5 hours, B, 6 hours, or C, 7.5? So your answer, I'm going to give you it because everybody gets 100% on my test here. It's going to be 7.5 hours a day on screen. So this is what kind of baffled me. Our kids are at school 8 hours a day, and then they're spending an average of 7.5 hours on a screen, which that's 15.5 out of 24 hours a day. When do our kids have time to decompress, do homework, spend time with family, sleep? I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of work, and our kids are exhausted.
Mm-hmm. I think as well, with spending so much time, and that is a terrifying statistic. Mm-hmm. What I had been doing some research on, and I attended a conference, a Children and Screens conference in DC this summer, and was really talking to some of the doctors about what they're seeing just with people's body awareness. There's something called interoception, which is that kind of mind-body connection. And what they're now finding through their studies is that children are losing the ability to pay attention to what their body's asking. For example, if I was sitting here now, my stomach was rumbling, that's a way of my body indicating, okay, you're hungry, go and eat something. But children are losing this awareness because they're so involved in screens. And Sophie and I were talking, we had a parent share with us that they were parked in a high school parking lot waiting to pick up their teen. And they were in a stationary vehicle, and multiple times high schoolers just walked straight into their car, like they weren't even driving. And so do you think that is also applicable to like vestibular? Are people not paying attention to these auditory cues as well?
Well, it's the environmental awareness. You know, again, our senses are all so connected, and our vestibular system, where our body is in space, and then our proprioception, how we move through space. They are so addicted to these screens that the environmental awareness, the safety awareness, they don't even realize they're crossing the street. And what I've seen in my younger kids, they might not be on devices as much, but they still are so unaware of their bodies and how they move through space. They are not environmentally aware. And that's really a huge safety concern, because they'll just walk off, or they'll walk across the street and not look both ways. And so you're kind of seeing this start, and you're seeing it differently in these age groups. But that's so sad. And I mean, think about how many of us go to a restaurant and you look around and families are sitting at the dinner table and everybody is on their phone. The social connection that we're losing with each other, that's how you feel loved. That's how you feel worthy. That's how you feel. That's how, when you know these people are with you. And that is a hard thing when they have put, I guess, their screens as that important thing.
So we've been talking a little bit so far about what this kind of vestibular deficit can look like. Talk to me about neuroplasticity, because often when parents hear some of this content, and full transparency to people, so my eldest was born in 2010. This was just as iPads were launching. And if anybody remembers the Baby Einstein movement, I was one of those parents who had heard about Baby Einstein, how it was going to increase my child's vocabulary and language acquisition. I mean, I could not get the kid on an iPad fast enough because I felt like this was the height of intelligence. And now we know a lot differently. We've learned a lot. We know the impacts, especially of young children on screen. So it can be very easy when parents hear some of this information about vestibular, what it looks like in the classroom, the impact because of screens, to think, oh my goodness me, is this, have I ruined my child's brain? So could you just talk about neuroplasticity and ways that our human brains can overcome things like this?
So neuroplasticity is if you provide the right input into your life or into your body every day, you can help with better pathways. And so that's kind of why we're doing like these sensory motor obstacle courses. So I'll give you an example. I have kids, I'll have like 6 different things, and I'll have kids go through the tunnel. They'll do stepping stones. They'll do a balance activity. They'll do jumping. And then they kind of get to pick crawling to me, whether they army crawl, bear crawl, and then they'll come to me and we'll do patty cake. Whether you're playing sports, whether you're a young kid, when you are working constantly on your body movement and using your body to try to motor plan better, you're setting up better pathways. And so the more a child moves, the more a child plays, whether it's sports or swimming or whatever they do, you can set up those better pathways to help our children. And what's been, I think, kind of really eye-opening for me is so many of our kids, we talk about our vestibular, they can't cross midline. They can't patty cake. And what we're seeing is that also transfers to the attention shift from the board to the paper, the left to right reading, the visual scanning, and then it affects that environmental awareness. So the more we can use our bodies, the more we can practice using our bodies appropriately. And what I saw last year is when I started off these groups at the beginning, then looked at them in the middle and at the end, it was absolutely amazing to see how much these kids they were just so much better. Their motor planning, their organization skills. And now I've seen these kids at the beginning that I saw last year, their teachers better attention, better alertness. They're able to go through the thing, but also auditory. They're following directions now. We can give them 3 or 4 step directions and think about how successful that feels for a child.
Yeah. So I am a personal huge supporter of play. And I know you and I have had some great conversations on this, but can you just highlight how important is play when it comes to the development of the vestibular system?
Yes. Oh, let me find my card. I have all these cards.
And whilst you get your cards ready, I'm always very mindful that we have parents of children of all different ages.
Mhm.
And so sometimes there's this kind of misconception that play is just for the early years. So would you even extend how we can still incorporate play into the lives of teenagers? Like, nobody is too old to play in my book. So would you just kind of frame that for us?
Well, so we have to remember at all the ages. So we're like our younger ages, play truly is the work of children. It is how they learn how to use their body. It's how they maneuver through space. It's how they feel confident in their body. And I always said that we kind of start at the bottom of the ladder. We have better gross motor skills and motor planning and sensory integration. Then we kind of move up the ladder, and then you see better fine motor skills. And these speech skills come along. So children need to play. They need to have rough play. They need to be climbing trees and climbing ladders and going down slides and swinging. But then we get into junior high, you're talking about sports, right? A lot of kids love sports. Even if they don't love sports, you have swimming, you have karate, you have so many other areas. Band. I mean, think about a band person on the field, the motor planning of playing an instrument and walking in line in front of somebody. Across the board, these junior high schoolers have this. And then also as they get older, why not take a walk with your 16-year-old and say, you know what, you're going to put your phone down. We're going to take a walk. And even they don't talk to you, they know you love them, but they're still walking. They're still getting that movement and that input and vitamin D. They across the board, you can never stop playing. I am out here playing with our kids, doing motor labs, going over stepping stones, skipping with them. Why not? Life's too short, right? And it truly, I will tell you, if you are seeing these difficulties in your child or in your students, if you start doing some of these things like these examples, you start them now and you kind of look at in the middle and at the end, you will see a huge improvement. And also some of the things that you can bring into like a classroom is, I love these. These are balance disc, and this really helps your vestibular proprioception, core, posture, strength. And so it really helps kids' attention and alertness, and you're wiggling, but you don't want to wiggle off of it, right? So they really are learning how to use their body more. And these can move with you everywhere. They can go to circle time. They can go to the library. They can go to the lunchroom. They don't make noise, and you can clean them very easily. And I think this really helped us when I was working with a private school during COVID. This was a huge thing for us to use. So there's tools that we can incorporate in the classroom that's not going to distract everybody else, but it's going to work on those vestibular systems. We want to have our building blocks, and we want to build up the ladder.
Yeah, and I love, even as the parent to a 15-year-old son and a 13-year-old son, I'm still trying, to be as intentional as I can at finding the things that capture their interest. And then we incorporate play that way. And I know you and I had spoken, even things like being outside in the yard. My middle son, he's just discovered bonsai trees. He saw something on a TV show, now he's into gardening, and really that's his kind of play. I mean, a lot of adults, if you enjoy being in the garden and doing gardening, that's our own kind of downtime. That's like playfulness, curiosity. And so I think that's really important. What about how important is just movement, about trying to put a little bit of movement in what is a sedentary day? I know the children spend many hours sitting in a chair as well. So how important is movement? Are there times in the day that we can kind of grab those moments to do a little bit of movement?
Anytime. So I'll give you an example. I was doing a motor lab outside, and I look up, and one of our elementary teachers took a break from the classroom and had our students out there. It was a beautiful day, and she was having her kids skip. So when you're skipping, you're crossing midline, you're doing motor planning, you're giving that brain a break, and you're getting that brain ready to go back into the classroom and be alert and attentive. So you've kind of addressed a lot of different sensory inputs to wake them up. Why not take a 10 or 15-minute break? The balance discs are great. You can put TheraBands on legs and they can move their legs. Standing. I am a stander. I eat oftentimes at breakfast in front of my family, eating yogurt because I like to stand. I like to be grounded. Why can't we stand and work? I mean, across the board, we're having CEOs standing and typing. So you can also have movement breaks in your classrooms. When I was studying for my OT exam, I was subbing here in Fort Worth, and throughout the day, we would do movement breaks. So I would have them do floor push-ups, sit-ups, jumping jacks. We would even do patty cake, and I did it throughout the day, and it just got them awake and engaged and ready to move, because a lot of kids are going home and they're just sitting playing video games or on their computers or on iPads or on phones. So that engagement is going to make them be alert, be attentive. And that's what we need for the classroom. And that's like what we need them for learning.
Yeah. And I think what's such a challenge now is the types of apps and the games and the things that are on the iPads and the gamification. I've heard it described as digital cotton candy. It's just the thing that children will want to do. And we've had parents report, well, we've tried to take them on a walk, but they'll say, oh, it's boring. And I know you and I have shared before that their brains get so conditioned to being entertained all the time. The manipulative, like the way that many of you will know about the dopamine, just how the dopamine is hijacked, and these children just, their expectations is they're going to constantly be entertained. And so it can be really hard, because doing these movements or just going to the park or swinging don't initially feel as joyful as being on a device with these games and all of this instant gratification. We have a few questions that I would love us to have time to get through, but I want to, just before we hit the questions, for those parents who maybe you've shared this today and they're thinking, oh, I recognize some of these traits, or I think I might have seen some of this. What are kind of the steps you would recommend with regards to how do you gather more information about what might be going on from the people in your child's life? And then any kind of key takeaways that you want to share with the parents as well.
So first thing is do some stuff like this at home. Watch your children, like swinging, the motor planning of swinging. Watch your child play. Give them directions and see if they can follow your 3 or 4 step directions when you tell them to run. Swing 15 times, then slide down the slide, go up the steps. Watch how that child motor plans and how your child motor plans. But I think the best thing is we need to remember that it truly takes a village to raise kids. And I know here at St. Andrews, the teachers love teaching. They love their students, and they're really, truly here to help. And ask your teachers, send them an email, say, hey, are you seeing these things? Because I'm seeing these things. I think that's your first step to really start kind of going, oh, wow, I'm seeing this. And then collaborate with that team. And then if you do have an OT, like professionals at your school, have them go observe them in the classroom, have them go observe them at recess or a PE. And then that way you have your input, a teacher's input, like a specialist input, and you can kind of work together going, okay, we're seeing a little bit more. How about we go talk to the pediatrician? Does that answer your question?
No, that's great. Thank you. Okay. And if there was one thing that you would encourage parents to try and incorporate more into their kind of raising of their children. So as an occupational therapist, what do you feel is just key that the child gets the exposure and experience of?
I'm going to go back to it, play and sports and being outside as a family, being away from the iPads, the iPhones. I will tell you, I also have an 8th grader, and we did the wait till 8th for a phone. It was hard, and we got asked every day if she could have a phone. And she actually had to do continuing education classes with us, my husband and I. And so we had to watch these uncomfortable things. We had to read these uncomfortable things, but we also did a contract. So I wanted her to realize this is the world at her fingertips. And we have to really remember that. And what I told her is, I am your mom. I'll be your mom. And one day I'll be your friend. But I had to set up those boundaries because there's too much at her fingertips now. But I also have seen the overstimulation, the addiction, and the mental health that we're experiencing across the United States because of screen time. So play with your kids, talk to your kids. I mean, we do, like, you can do talking point stuff with your family, sit at the dinner table, talk about how their day's gone, and just listen to music. Take away that phone. And now I will tell you, they're going to be mad because they've activated that addiction. They want to see how many likes they have. They want to see what their friends are doing. But I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I had no idea it wasn't invited to birthday parties. My screen was looking outside my suburban door when we would drive to Florida. We have to remember we've really gone to kind of extreme where I feel we have to find a better balance for our children. At the end of the day, we are going to have technology. They're using computers, they're using screens, but I feel that we just need to have a better balance in 2025.
Yeah, and just to echo that, that's kind of the heart of what we say here in Smart Families, because we know technology isn't going to go away. It's about a healthy and balanced use of the technology that is existing, but to delay those parts of technology that have been proven to be detrimental for children's development. So I would love to just ask some questions that we have here. One of the questions that came up this morning, though, a parent, and I'm going to answer this as from Smart Families. They were asking, are the children going to learn about the vestibular system? And one of the things that I'm excited to kind of share with you is once Sophie and I got connected and I learned about her passion and just her heart for what she does, we are looking to do a project together where we're going to create some programming. We're going to have it available for schools so that children can learn about the vestibular systems. Because I got years through my life before I realized this was a thing. But what this education is just such an incredible tool, the why, so that children understand why parents have to make decisions that sometimes they don't either like or agree with. So this question came up this morning. I'd love you to answer this one. This is from Melissa. She said, is the vestibular system affected mostly by iPads, or does it apply to the TV as well?
So that's a great question. I don't know if I know the exact answer to versus TV and iPad. One thing about a TV, it's usually further away from you than the iPad or iPhone. So you're a lot closer, you're a lot more overstimulated. But I think that no matter whether it's TV or screens, you still have to have that balance. I feel that having a phone or iPad in front of them, it's that blue light that's in front of them, and that's what really decreases our melatonin. So I feel that might affect you more. But I would have to kind of look more into that and see that TV and screen time. I think we really have to, no matter what, we have to balance those things.
Yeah. And just kind of to expand a little bit on what you were saying,
Yeah.
what often we know, I know some people have asked specifically about screen time. I know as parents, sometimes we can want to know, what's the right amount of time, for children's developing brains. And the American Pediatric Association do have some guidelines on the times, but what we're hearing more and more from the kind of research that we're hearing is that a lot of it is quality over quantity. The quality of what your child is watching. We have children who share with us, we watch Bible stories, or, this is the content we're watching. That compared to the same amount of time, but watching YouTube shorts, this fast images, the noise, the overstimulation, they're very, very different. And so it's hard, especially, and I know some other people have asked about ed tech and use of screens there. It's really hard to stipulate a specific time because, unfortunately, being on a screen, I mean, it feels unavoidable at times because there's always something, or there's always a request, to complete something on a screen. It makes it that even when you go, I actually am somebody who loves filling out checklists or, forms. And now you go to the doctor's office and they give you an iPad, and I'm like, oh, I want to fill the form in. Another question, and just very quickly mentioning the blue light. I know somebody just asked whether you can switch the blue light off. So I believe within settings on devices, there's something called night shift, and it's to reduce the amount of blue light. So this, I have not tried this. I just know it exists. I know some children have told us that they wear blue light glasses to kind of stop the blue light. But it's kind of, you have to intentionally do something to reduce that. It doesn't just, automatically do that. So now, before we answer this next question, I would love just to get, as a note, I'd love to get your response as an occupational therapist, what you think about this. We've had a number of questions about what about the children who are using online apps for things like reflex math or similar. Somebody else has asked about just ed tech, those kinds of things. So I know you've mentioned a balance, and that's always where we land. And kind of, we don't and have not currently really stipulated anything in terms of ed tech, but we know we're in a growing world of, ed tech is very prevalent, especially after COVID, when, I remember I was teaching exclusively online for a period of time. But how would you say, with now the inclusion of online learning, do you, in your personal opinion, just feel, is that really inhibiting this vestibular sense even more?
Well, I have two different things. I think, like you were saying, it's going to come down to balance. I think that you really have to kind of look at the time limit that you're doing online. So say there's a math online thing and science, and they're both 30 minutes. Why not do the 30 minutes of math and then let the child walk away, take a motor break, take some time away from the screen, and then come back? A lot of times that is like they're learning those things. And like how you talked about YouTube shorts, that YouTube short is that constant fastness, where when you're doing some educational learning, it's not so fast. It's like these blocks of time. So you're still on a screen, but it's not making that addiction and that kind of like, oh, I want more cotton candy feeling, and that overstimulation. So again, I think you're going to have to look at balance. Why not set a timer and go, okay, we're going to do this first, take a motor break, and then do this. You also can have your kids sit on an exercise ball while they're doing learning on online, and that activates that vestibular system because they have to sit upright posture, they have to move their body, and they have to be on this ball and really pay attention to where their body's in space, or they're going to fall off. So then we also alert, we're attentive, we know where our body is in space, so you can help the vestibular system, help that engagement while you're on the screen. But I think it's going to come down to that balance, screen time, and how much time for your child. And like you said, one thing I really try to teach my kids as they get older is self-awareness, is realizing when they're overstimulated, realizing when they're auditorily overstimulated, visually overstimulated. They have to be self-aware of when they feel those things. But as parents, we have to help them learn that, to be self-aware and learn that, hey, you're tired and you've been looking at your screen for an hour, and I can tell that you don't want me to take it away because you just want to keep looking. And so there's no perfect parenting. I think all of us are on here because we all want to be good parents. We all want to learn new things and understand it. I truly believe in it. It 100% takes a village to raise children, and the more knowledge you have, the more understanding you have, you can provide that to your children, and they can be more self-aware. They can understand why you're doing these things.
Yeah, and definitely a stance that we take when it comes to things like ed tech. And I just want to share with parents, we hear this conversation, like we hear you, we understand, it does feel contradictory, especially when you attend something like this and you hear this. So we just really encourage you to have these conversations with your school. Just go reach out to the administration or your class teacher. Often starting a conversation it's just the beginning.
Mhm.
I mean, I liken it to, 5 years ago when the smartphone was just this big social experiment, and look how far we've come with now that we know what we know. And so, we are hopeful that as we continue really evaluating the impact of children being on screens, and especially things like gamification and certain apps, that we are able to find that balance, and just really get down to what is best for children's development, especially at the youngest age. I see a question here about somebody's asked, what about activities to strengthen the vestibular system and midline crossing for older elementary kids, specifically an 11-year-old who maybe would not be thrilled to play patty cake with his mom and dad, which makes sense.
I understand. Well, so you can have a game where you have 2 exercise balls, and you're sitting on an exercise ball and they're sitting on an exercise ball. And do y'all know those paddles that have the tennis ball and the Velcro, and then you throw it and it Velcros? Play that game. Make it a competition. Say, hey, I bet we can't make it this far. And then you go so you're 2 feet apart, then you're 3 feet apart, then you're 4 feet apart. So what that does for an 11-year-old, you're activating their vestibular system. They're learning how to balance on that. But before they know it, guess what they're doing? They're taking their right hand or their left hand and they're throwing it to you crossing midline. They're throwing it to you crossing midline, because you can move around the room. You also could do something where you have targets on an exercise ball, and you make targets where he's having to hit these targets to the right, he's having to hit these targets to the left, he's having to hit these targets, and you're making it a game where you're kind of getting his vestibular system ready for alertness, for attention, for crossing midline, that visual scanning component. Again, there's a lot of different activities we can do, but those are things that you can do indoors, outdoors, to help with that scanning.
Yeah, and even share with them why you're doing it. I know sometimes my children watch everything that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And they can have watched me do something 10 times and have never repeat. But then when I tell them why I'm doing it, all of a sudden it's kind of interesting to them and they want to join in and do the same thing that I'm doing. And so it's just, I just think openly sharing with the children, like I've learned about the vestibular system, I've learned that there's a balance. If you have a child who does use screens, say this is a really healthy way that we can grow a system within our bodies that, is really useful and is going to set us up for success. Another question here. Now, I don't know how to pronounce this word, so I'm going to try my best, but you may know. It's the question about tubes. So do eustachian tubes impact the vestibular system as well? How does that add the challenge? And if, Sophie, this is one that you don't know, this is something.
Are they talking about like ear tubes?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they're still here on the call to definitely. Oh, yes, they say yes. They are the ear tubes.
The ear tubes. Okay. So again, vestibular is really connected to your inner ear. And so if they've had ear infections, if they've had ear tubes, those things can sometimes impact their vestibular system. So it's good to do, like I was talking about, those exercise ball activities. Like, so for instance, my 10-year-old sits on an exercise ball, and that's how she does her homework. So she has to stay upright. She's at her dining room table and she's doing her homework. So you could really incorporate that or these balance discs at home and have work on that vestibular system to where they're doing their homework and writing. I've also had kids on the exercise ball where I will take paper to the wall and they're writing this. So we're setting up good posture. We're setting up good alignment. They have to focus on paying attention and staying on that, but they're writing their spelling words. And so you can incorporate that if you're noticing that, like maybe clumsiness, or they're running into desk or kind of falling a little bit more. You can do those kind of activities at home that can really help with that integration.
And I just think neuroplasticity is so incredible.
Yes.
The fact that the brain is this is why it's my favorite thing that I love to talk about, because the brain is just so sophisticated and efficient in the way that, we can always teach our brain something. It isn't just one and done, and then that's you for the rest of your life, that we just always have this capacity to provide it opportunities for these skills. It's amazing. And then the final one that I just saw was somebody said, how come one child might fall off a chair, but another one wouldn't fall off a chair? So, why did I not have an entire classroom? My understanding would be that nobody's got a static level of vestibular development by a certain age, and it just depends on the experiences.
It depends on developmental milestones and what milestones has been met by that child, right? So I will say that if say kids have crawled and then gone to walking, or kids gone straight from sitting to walking, sometimes you don't know. You truly have to have an OT's opinion and a teacher's opinion and like this evidence and what they've observed to really understand why that's happening. But a lot of times it's those senses are not integrated, those motor skills, those motor planning skills, and they just need that work. And just like you said, Sally, for me, I got certified in a music program that works on neuroplasticity and auditory, and you can change your brain using the right input. And it's amazing. The more and more you can do that, you will see a huge difference. And just like I said, I see it every day in the kids that I've been working with. And even I can compare them from last year to this year and what they're doing now, what they couldn't do last year. They are sitting in desks, they're attending, they are focused because we've gotten those sensory systems integrated. So I just keep playing, keep working with motor skills. I mean, and again, not everybody's an athlete. Not everybody likes sports. Just like we talked about band, swimming, gymnastics, karate, all these things help your sensory system, and self-awareness and regulation skills really help. And one thing I want you to remember is your vestibular system, how it supports students in learning. So it regulates arousal levels, which makes you alert, ready to focus. The coordination and movement, so how your head and eye movements visually scan the environment. Your spatial orientation, and that is essential for moving throughout your environment. And then that sensory integration, it helps kids be able to follow auditory directions, motor plan, coordinate, and how they feel successful in their classroom environment.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now we've got one last question, but I'm very mindful of time.
Yeah.
So for those of you that need to jump off, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. I am going to ask Sophie this last question. So if you've got a few minutes just to finish this final question. Also, just so people know, this was recorded, but we are also repeating this online talk at 7 p.m. this evening. So if you've heard something, if maybe you want your significant other to join, or you have friends or people in a mum's chat, please just go onto our website and you can sign up for the 7 p.m. one as well. The question here was about, what about those kiddos who maybe present with ADHD symptoms, or they have been diagnosed ADHD? So how can we help those specific children with their vestibular systems?
So that's those kind of things that I just said, using a balance disc, using movement. So one thing with children that have been diagnosed with ADHD, they need movement. They need constant movement to activate their brain because they have a high neurological threshold. So if they are moving, they're engaged. So often it is nice for them to stand at their desk, sit on a balance disc, have TheraBand, and those are all going to help with your vestibular because first of all, they have to learn self-control. They have to learn how to use their body in space so they don't affect all the other students, but they have to be activated for their brain to say, I'm alert, I'm attentive, I'm ready to learn. I am one of those kids. I struggled throughout the 80s and 90s because it wasn't a big thing then. And it's amazing the knowledge that we have now, the strategies that we can put in the classroom. So if your child has been diagnosed with that, go talk to your teacher, talk to your specialist, talk to your doctor, and see if there's strategies in the classroom that your student or your child would use there to help with the vestibular system, but to help with that attention and focus for that child.
Amazing, thank you.
Yes,
Somebody said about the list of links to some of these products. What we will do after we've done the final talk this evening, I'm going to compile some information and we'll have it available that we can send out to everybody who attended. So I'll be sure to ask Sophie if she can give me some kind of recommendations for any products if parents want to buy them and use them. But I want to say a huge thank you, Sophie. This is such a great conversation. I just love that parents have heard a different part of learning that's not academics. This is a new, like, fundamental part of how children learn. So we are so appreciative that you were here today. We love that you're a St. Andrews parent and a St. Andrews staff member. So we love when Smart Families goes full circle and we get to really incorporate the knowledge of one of our own. So Sophie will be back this evening at 7 p.m. Thank you again. Thank you everybody for using this lunch hour to come and learn with us. And we wish you all a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Sophie.
Thank you. Bye.